Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Now, authorities are struggling to keep track of people coming in and out of the country. Apart from the admin nightmare for Home Affairs, South Africa's porous borders also pose a challenge for crime fighting. For more on this, I'm joined by Border Management Authority Commissioner Dr. Michael Masiapato. He is with us in studio. Doc, thank you very much for coming in and for speaking to us. Just first of all, since your inception last year, how many arrests have you been able to make? How many interceptions have you been able to carry out?
Thank you very much, Marcel, and we appreciate the opportunity as the Border Management Authority. Maybe just to indicate that as the Border Management Authority officially, we started operating by the 1st of April this year. That is when we actually, I will say, integrated officials from the 4 government departments into the authority, and we started effectively operating legally as a Schedule 3A public entity on the 1st of April. However, what we did last year on the 15th or 14th of July was to actually launch the first cohort of the 200 border guards. So since the deployment, as you will know, we deployed them in 6 vulnerable areas across our ports of entry. We had some team in Beitbridge, some team in Libombo, 1 team in Oshuk, another team in Fixburg, as well as in Maseru. So since their deployment up to this point, we are able to report that we're able to intercept around 35,000 people who had been trying to enter the country illegally. So in that instance, we were able to, in a way, identify them as they were trying to sneak into the country, and we were able to get them arrested. We had to then take them into the port, get them processed, and make sure that they are actually deported. But additional to that, we had been able to intercept around 139 vehicles that were fairly stolen in the country with the intention of taking them out of our borders and be able to kind of be sold out there. So to that extent, we're able to intercept those, and we're able to give them to the police, the detectives, for them to be able to do the investigation work in the country in terms of the owners and all of that. But additional to that, Masaho, we're also able to, I would say, deny entry around 95,000 people entering the Republic. And those are the people who, for example, had been declared undesirable into the Republic for various reasons, but some of those are the people that are needed in their respective countries for having committed crimes. So in those instances, we have to then deny them entry and make sure that they get deported back into those countries so that they can be able to face the music. So those are some of the, I would say, successes that the Border Management Authority had since inception, I would say, this year, but of course, the border guards last year.
Just to go a little bit deeper into the statistics that you've just shared with us, Doc, with the, I think you said 35,000 arrests for people who were sneaking into the country illegally, 190 vehicles that were stolen. Of those, is it a fair view that South Africans have that those who would be sneaking into the country are mostly coming from Zim, and the country where mostly stolen vehicles go to from South Africa is Mozambique?
Yeah, no, definitely. So generally, I would say that our border between South Africa and Zimbabwe, which is around 250 kilometers in terms of the distance, is one of the biggest generators of illegal migrants in a way. And that is where the majority of those that had been intercepted were trying to enter the country from that side. But we also have some big number in terms of your Fixburg area from Lesotho into the Republic. That also generate a number of illegal migrants. And of course, in terms of the vehicles, most of the intercepted were basically being taken into northern KZN in the area called Mklawe Lingana. So those were the areas where the people were kind of trying to sneak the vehicles out. But we did intercept some who were also trying to cross into Mozambique via the Limpopo River, as it were. So basically those were the areas as it stands.
And among those who were arrested, whether it was people who were trying to get into the country, etc., did you arrest any government official like SANDF or police who tried to assist with the corruption?
No, not really. Not really. These are basically people who were actually trying to enter the country legally. It doesn't necessarily include South Africans or any of the government officials who are trying to do any nefarious intent. So it doesn't include those.
Tell me about system downtime because of load shedding and how that's affecting your ability to execute your mandate.
Yeah, no, you see, system downtime is not much of a big issue in terms of the ports of entries. And the reason for that is because, as you will be aware, ports of entries had always been in the periphery, out there in the bushes. So we had always had very strong generators to make sure that we are able to be sustained, even before the problem of load shedding, as it were. So we don't necessarily get affected that much. However, instances where we had some challenges were fairly in Maseru Bridge, as an example. And in there, it was purely the reason of the generator that has been fairly a bit old. And as you will know, most of those were being provided to the port by the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. So we had to then replace that, and now we are fairly operating fairly fine, as it were.
Yeah. A little earlier this year, the Minister of Home Affairs appeared before Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs, and some of the members of the committee were quite harsh on him, saying that the Border Management Authority, or the BMA as you might call it, is just, there's a lot of cash injected into it, but they're not seeing anything. Obviously, you've shared with me these statistics, which are quite big, but they feel like it could be bigger because of what we seem to know in South Africa. I know you can't answer for the minister, but you're the guy on the ground. You're the one who the boots answer to you.
Yeah, you see, I think, Maseho, on that one, what we need to say is that, you see, Border Management Authority, as I've indicated, legally, we started operating 1st of April. So I will say fairly we are kind of 4 or 5 months in existence.
Oh, so it wasn't a fair...
So, yeah, definitely. So what was happening in the last financial year, which is 2022-2023, meaning 1st April last year until 31st March this year, we were operating within the Department of Home Affairs, being incubated there. But the intention was to enable ourselves to be established as an standalone entity. So we started being, or standing alone by the 1st of April. Now, if you were to look at the work of the Border Management Authority before the 1st of April this year, we were only looking more in the contribution of the border guards. And we're talking about 200 officials. So 200 officials being deployed in the 6 vulnerable segments, as you can imagine. Obviously, looking at the nature of the problems that we had to deal with and the capacity that we actually had
the danger on their lives.
So you will definitely realize that it couldn't necessarily be to say that we've actually failed, because we haven't even started really operating at that much. I mean, out of the 200 border guards, we basically got 76 million, which was the money that we got to kickstart by bringing in capacity, as it were.
And clearly government has seen the difference, and that's why they're extending on the 5th. The President is with you at the Bridge border. He's going to be launching the fact that you're bringing more boots on the ground. Do you think that this is going to assist South Africa even further with this problem that we have of porous borders?
Yeah, maybe let me start here, Masego, so that at least my response is a bit contextual. To say that over and above the 200 border guards, we had to integrate, I would say, around 1,900 officials who came from the 4 government departments. So around 1,200 we got them, immigration officials from Home Affairs. They are now employees of the BMA.
From the Revenue Service, from Transport. Yeah,
definitely. So we basically brought all of those, but not necessarily from Transport and Revenue. Is Home Affairs, 1,200, around 380 from Agriculture, around 360 from Health, and around 20 from Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. So all in all, as we speak now, Border Management Authority is sitting at 2,100 staff complement, because now we are operating in all the 72 ports of entries in the Republic. So additional to that, we are now bringing further 400 additional border guards, and these ones are the ones that are currently at training, and they will be enrolled sometimes a bit later after they finish their training exercise. So on the 5th of October in Bridge, the President is going to officially launch the Border Management Authority as a 3rd law enforcement authority in the Republic. So the issue of whether it will make a contribution or it will assist in addressing the problems, we are definitely very much confident that it is supposed to. And the reason for that is because the multi-agency approach that was initially deployed has not necessarily bear much fruit. We're able to see I would say the challenges of applying a multi-agency approach for almost 29 years. Now we are going to be implementing an integrated border management platform. And by the way, maybe I can just give you a typical example of a success that you should be able to recognize. Before we could even come on board, there used to be a challenge where you'll find that there was chaos in terms of trucks in the various ports, whether it's Beitbridge, whether it's Libombo, and all of those kind of ports. So since we came in, we have been leading in terms of the engagements with a multiplicity of stakeholders, including freight forwarders, including the law enforcement on the corridors and all of that. And we're fairly able to stabilize the movement of trade together with SARS in between our jurisdiction. I remember one day I was with your colleague Atiwe in definitely in Beitbridge. And he did confirm that indeed he has been covering those, but he started to see the difference since we came on board.
Well, December is going to be another test. It's coming very soon. So those 400 that the President will be welcoming on the 5th of October will be it. You know, I know that your mandate at the moment obviously is with these 6 border posts that you have been mandated with, particularly your Beitbridge, Vicksburg, Maseru, the ones that you have mentioned. But obviously once you execute it well and you have more boots on the ground, the 10,000 that you want, it's going to be extended to other ports, right? Are the sea ports a part of this?
Yeah, so basically in terms of the passing of the Border Management Authority Act, it gives us mandate to operate in all the 72 ports of entries in the Republic. That means 53 land ports of entry, that means 10 international airports, that means 8 seaports. So those are our areas of work. So additional to that, we work in what we call border law enforcement area. So border law enforcement area basically means your vulnerable segments along the borderline. For instance, areas where you find there is a community in both sides of the country, in South Africa as well as in Botswana, in South Africa and Lesotho, in South Africa as well as Swaziland and all of that. So we are also going to be deploying the border guards in those areas to make sure that we manage the movement of communities in those areas through formalized community crossing points.
Just explain to me very quickly the difference that you're going to make at the sea ports, because obviously one is land and one is sea. So there's there must be quite a huge difference in your approach. What will be the different approach at seaports?
Yeah, maybe let me indicate that we are to be putting together a team of what we call coastal guards, which others call maritime border guards. So their role, remember there is the South African Navy, for example, whose role is to protect the country from any possible invasion coming from the seaside. Our role is to be able to make sure that we protect the marine economy around the coastline, making sure that we deal with issues of illegal fishing and all kind of criminality, including the movement of narcotics, for example, through the sea into the Republic. So those are the areas where we are going to be operating at. For now, based on the available resources, we are only recruiting around 50 coastal guards that are actually going to also be part of the launch itself. And we are busy now trying to procure their tools of trade in terms of the patrol boats that they need to use to patrol along the coastline.
Doc, my last question to you, in terms of you know, Home Affairs and yourselves and many other law enforcement agencies that you're now joining, you know, they've expressed the need for technology that will assist with this, drones, for instance, etc. But you'll need buy-in from our neighbors, right, for these technologies to actually operate properly, because even coming in or getting into their countries, we need these. Are you getting interest at all? Are they willing?
No, definitely. So our engagement with our neighboring countries, 6 of them, we have what we call joint technical committees. And most of those engagements, I lead them, but some of them, when they're discussing policy, they get led by the departments. So in that instance, we basically engage with them. Like I was saying earlier, in another platform, that the Deputy Commissioner for Operations, General Chilembe, as we speak, he's busy actually with the Mozambicans engaging on how do we then make sure there is seamless movement and seamless interface between ourselves and those other countries. I think we'll also be aware of the redesigning the RFP, the request for proposal that is now out into the market. The intention is to redesign and redevelop our 6 top commercial ports, Libombo being one of those, Beitbridge and all of those. So the intention for that is to be able to synchronize our technologies with our neighboring countries, but ultimately implement what we call a one-stop border post. So all of these are the interventions that we are doing, fairly to make sure that the movement of trade between ourselves and our neighboring countries moves very much seamlessly. And that is why the integration of various stakeholders into one, it also assists in doing away with some bureaucratic processes in the port. And we're integrating them into, for example, a single operating procedures instead of a number of them that are scattered.
So that departments don't work in silos, because it is a multi-departmental issue, the porous borders. Thank you so much, Doc, for coming into studio and for speaking to us. That is Dr. Michael Masiapato. I keep messing that up, and my mom's going to shout at me. He's the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority.